And here we are, we're back again. And we're continuing. I know that the YouTube that we just did, the last video says that we were on 163, but actually we were in the middle of 162 and going to go over to 163. But as usual, I'm going to go backwards 1 point. And I'm going to repeat point 22 on page 162 because there's a phrase in here that as I was explaining this, I never came back and explained what it actually was referring to. So, and it's going to be referred to again on the next page. So I might as well get it real quick. It's just the three inherent potentials of the Buddha nature. Okay, and these all respond to your Dharma body, your reward body, and your manifest body. So let me just quickly read this. It says, a principle formulated by Tentai that views the Buddha nature from three perspectives. The three inherent potentials of the innate Buddha nature. The wisdom to perceive it is one of them, and the good deed. The three inherent potentials of the innate Buddha nature, comma, the wisdom to perceive it, and the good deeds or practice to develop this wisdom and cause the Buddha nature to emerge. Beneficent actions aid the development of wisdom, and the developed wisdom realizes the innate Buddha nature. In this way, the three constitute causes that work together to enable one to attain the effect of Buddhahood. So the bottom line is your manifested body is enabling you on the guidance of your reward body, your perception of a goal to attain Buddhahood. You're making all kinds of good causes. All right. As you make good causes, your reward body advances along the path in terms of its perception of the potential of Buddhahood. Maybe I can get to stage 6. You start taking stage 6 seriously. This is really kind of stage 5 of the 6 stages of practice. And then again, stage 6 is actually Buddhahood. Okay, so. All right, he says here, point 23, concerning the vow of obeisance related to the Dharma nature. Now, the Dharma nature is the innate Buddhahood that we are eternally endowed with, the three bodies. That's the whole thing. The understanding of that reality is Buddhahood. The understanding of that aspect is the Dharma nature. The record of the orally transmitted teaching says the Bodhisattva, never disparaging, plants his feet firmly on the three inherent potentials of the Buddha nature that represent the Dharma nature. Okay, I hope you understood what that just said. And the true aspect of reality, namely Nam-myoho Renge-kyo. So he's qualifying Bodhisattva, never disparaging, is predicating all of this on Nam-myoho Renge-kyo. The heart of the 24 characters that make up the passage reading. And I read that to you from page 308 before. He says, I have profound reverence for you. I would never, of the Lotus Sutra, I would never dare treat you with disparagement or arrogance. Why? Because you are all practicing the Bodhisattva way and are certain to attain Buddhahood. Chapter 20. Then he bows to the 4 kinds of believers who in their arrogance are overbearingly arrogant. In doing so, he is performing a vow of obeisance to the Buddha nature, dormant and undeveloped in living beings. In other words, he's recognizing, even though the people that he's talking to don't recognize it in themselves, he's recognized the reality that they do have an inherent Buddha nature. And he also knows that by virtue of professing what he's just professed, acknowledging to that Buddha nature, that is the equivalent of hearing the name and the words of the truth. Back in this parable or this story, him doing that is the same as you or I would introduce somebody to Nam-myoho Renge-kyo and plant that seed. The seed has been planted by his encounter with them and him qualifying to them the truth of the fact that he hasn't gone to the point of saying you're eternally endowed with the three bodies, but he's acknowledging their inherent Dharma nature, which is exactly the source of the eternally endowed three bodies. So he's saying, in doing so, he is performing he bows to them. So in doing that, he's not bowing to the arrogance or the hostility that they're expressing to him in sort of like trying to be polite. He's bowing to the reality that he perceives that they are Buddhas, just as he's on the path to be as a bodhisattva. Okay? I'll go on to point 23. That's pretty clear, right? Okay, point 23, concerning the vow of obeisance related to ignorance. The bottom of page 162, the record, and continuing on 163. The record of the orally transmitted teaching says, when one sets up distinctions between self and others. So in other words, that's when one of us sees other people as fundamentally different than us, then we are being ignorant to the reality that they possess the Buddha nature, just as what was explained and expressed by Bodhisattva never disparaging actions in the previous point. So he says, when one sets up distinctions between self and others, then the others are the four kinds of believers of overbearing arrogance, and the I is the Bodhisattva never disparaging, in a circumstance which he hasn't expressed, where he sees a distinction between the two of them. His whole thing has been, I see no distinction between you and I. All right, but were that the case, to set up distinctions between good and bad by regarding Bodhisattva never disparaging as a good person and the arrogant ones as bad persons is a sign of ignorance, because that reflects the reality that you don't perceive the Dharma nature in all living beings consistently. It doesn't matter whether they're good or evil. There's no separation between good or evil. He says, but when one recognizes this and performs a bow of obeisance, as he just did in point 23, then one is bowing in obeisance to Nam-myoho Renge-kyo. That's the Dharma nature fundamentally within all living beings, all right? But when one recognizes this and performs a bow of obeisance, then one is bowing in obeisance to Nam-myoho Renge-kyo, not to their arrogant behavior, but to the innate, essential nature of their living existence. The principle, Nam-myoho Renge-kyo, the principle in which good and bad are not two different things, in which correct and incorrect are one and the same. And that's, again, it sounds counterintuitive, but that's the point. They're not two different things that you have to get rid of one and bring out the other. They're one thing, and you flip them. You change the delusion of the incorrect understanding into the enlightenment of the correct understanding. Okay? And that's very clear, I hope, to everybody. This whole process of transformation is not one of replacing something, it's of improving and bringing out the correct aspect of those fundamental characteristics of our innate living characteristics. Point 24 on page 163. Concerning the bow of obeisance related to the two characters that make up Renge, or lotus blossom, the record of the orally transmitted teaching says, Renge stands for the two factors of cause and effect. There's no separation between cause and effect. When there is a bad cause, it will produce a bad effect. When there is a good cause, it will produce a good effect. The persons addressed by the Bodhisattva never disparaging, in their inner lives possess good causes that represent the three inherent potentials of a Buddha. In other words, in their inner lives possess not just the manifest body, but that body could start doing things that create good karma instead of bad karma. Their reward body is there in a dormant state until it's awakened by hearing in the name and the truth of the words and the truth, Nam-myoho Renge-kyo, and that ultimately leads into a process down the path of the 6 stages of practice, and you culminate in the 6th stage of practice in which you perceive the Dharma nature and you realize that you're connected to everything, and that you are thus come one of original enlightenment, eternally endowed with the 3 bodies. All right? He says, so in their inner lives possess good causes that represent the inherent 3 inherent potentials of the Buddha nature. When the potentials are actualized through behavior, through action, and through having encountered the name and the words of the truth, Nam-myoho Renge-kyo, they will produce good effects. which is why the Bodhisattva bows to these persons in obeisance and declares that they are all certain to attain Buddhahood, chapter 20, and that's on page 309 of the Lotus Sutra, right here at the very top of the page. I would never disparage you because you're all certain to attain Buddhahood. In the next paragraph, they start going crazy on him because how dare you say something so arrogant as to proclaim that I have this Buddhahood thing, that I'm a Buddha somehow. That's not me. Okay, so we perceive the truth, and the deluded people around us do not perceive the truth, and we endure whatever it takes to open the door to them. Even we preach to them even though it angers them. We open the door by relating Nam Myoho Renge Kyo and letting them hear the name and the words of the truth, and we've just done what we have to do. Point 25, and going on page 163, concerning the vow of obeisance related to the land of actual reward. Now, what's the land of actual reward? It's the Buddha land, but the land of actual reward is the Saha world, okay? Because this is where that progression occurs. It becomes the Buddha land when we hit stage 6, and we're Buddhists. Buddhists perceive whatever environment they're in as a Buddha land, all right? So the record of the orally transmitted teaching says, when the 10 worlds are considered in ascending order, the land of actual reward corresponds to the 9th world, that of Bodhisattva. Accordingly, we know that the land of actual reward is where the Bodhisattva, never disparaging, dwells, because wherever the Bodhisattva, wherever this Buddha nature manifests, as it would be in, he's functioning as a Bodhisattva, but never disparaging obviously is on the way to revealing his 6th stage of practice. So he says, accordingly, we know that the land of actual reward is where the Bodhisattva, never disparaging, dwells, but Saha world. But he performs a vow of obeisance there. It is known as the vow of obeisance related to the land of actual reward. Point 26, I hope that was clear. Point 26, considering the vow of obeisance related to the 2 words pity and compassion, jihi. The record of the orally transmitted teaching says, the practice of making a vow of obeisance carried out by the Bodhisattva, never disparaging, is based on the teaching that the people he bowed to were all certain to attain Buddhahood, because he had opened the door with the name and the words of the truth, and there's no going back. In every existence, they're going to gradually go forward. They will always encounter the name and the words of the truth. They'll always encounter Nam Myoho Renge Kyo. They'll continue to make advance. Even if they don't get to stage 6, it's not a process of wasted lifetime. They're advancing, and their karma will reflect that advance in their next lifetime, and they will continue, and they will, in fact, attain Buddhahood. They will establish the 6th stage of practice in one of their future existences if they don't do it in this one. And that's why it's so important that we do Shakabuku to anybody and everybody, because it's not something that's only for this moment or this existence. It's something that's eternal, just like us. Okay? So, they're all certain to attain Buddhahood, and therefore is an expression of pity and compassion. In other words, he understands that they just don't understand. It's not that they're evil or bad people. They're ignorant, okay? Hence, although the people might take sticks of wood or tiles and stones and beat and pelt him, he nevertheless persists in his effort, preaching to them forcefully, though it angered them, an action that arose from his feelings of pity and compassion, wanting to awaken in them the Buddha nature that he knows exists within them. It's his wisdom and their lack of wisdom. Since we are taught that the Buddha mind is a mind of great pity and compassion, a vow of obeisance is made in acknowledgement of this pity and compassion. When we do Shakabuku, that's exactly what we're doing. We might as well be doing that same vow of obeisance to pity and compassion, because we're not reflecting on what their outer appearance and what their state of life is at that moment. We're relating to what we know is inherently there and what will come forth once we open the door by exposing them to Nam Myoho Renge Kyo. All right, point 27 on page 20, point 27 on page 164. Concerning the vow of obeisance related to the stage of progressive awakening, the fifth of the 6 stages of practice. The record of the orally transmitted teaching says the Bodhisattva is regarded as occupying the stage of progressive awakening. Okay, so he's the part that he's playing as a Bodhisattva, because he's not functioning as a Buddha. He's not perceiving himself as a Buddha, right? So he's at that 5th stage where he's doing everything that a Buddha would do, because that's what stage 4 is. But now he's doing it out of the right sense of compassion and understanding of the teaching of Nam-myoho Renge Kyo, to be able to help others become equal to himself. So it says, the Bodhisattva is regarded as occupying the stage of progressive awakening, stage 5. From this vantage point, he performs a vow of obeisance to ordinary mortals who are in the first and lowest stage, that of being a Buddha in theory. So people that have never heard of Nam-myoho Renge Kyo, he's exposing them to Nam-myoho Renge Kyo for the first time. Because of this disparity in their respective positions, the ordinary mortals at the stage of being a Buddha in theory fail to accept the Buddha's prediction that they will attain Buddhahood, but instead slander him by calling him this ignorant monk. That's also stated on page 309. In the next paragraph from where I stopped, I told you, then they start giving him a bunch of hard time for saying that I would never disparage you. You are certain to attain. You are all certain to attain Buddhahood. The 4 kinds of believers in the next paragraph says, among the 4 kinds of believers, there are those who give way to anger, their minds lacking in purity, and they spoke ill of him and cursed him, saying, "This ignorant monk, where does he come from?" Presuming to declare that he does not disparage us, and bestowing on us a prediction that we will attain Buddhahood. We have no use for such vain and irresponsible predictions. Okay? And so the Daishonin is teaching you that you blow off that resistance. That's your expression of compassion and pity. You don't let their off-putting behavior deter you from opening the door to their Buddha wisdom that exists in them innately, so that they can become equal to you, and that you fulfill the vow of the Bodhisattva in that process too. It's not like you're just doing this for them. Every time you do this as the process of trying to awaken someone, you are fulfilling your vow as a Bodhisattva to accomplish this function. Okay? Going on to point 28 at the bottom of page 164. Concerning the vow of obeisance related to the stage of ultimate enlightenment, the 6th and highest stage of practice. The record of the orally transmitted teaching says, in the phrase, whatever persons he happened to meet or to see, chapter 20, the words can or meet, to meet or to see, refers to the insight of a Buddha. Okay? So he's functioning as a Bodhisattva, but he's already perceiving things exactly the way a Buddha would. There's no real difference then between his behavior and that of a Buddha, other than his full realization, the stage 6 realization, that he is a Buddha and always has been a Buddha. Okay? Because Bodhisattva, never disparaging, employing the insight of a Buddha, because the perspective that he's taking is exactly the Buddha nature itself, performed a vow of obeisance to the 4 kinds of believers of overbearing arrogance. It is considered that he performed a vow from the standpoint of the stage of ultimate enlightenment. Okay, even though he's functioning in the 9 realms as a Bodhisattva, and he hasn't completely realized the truth that he's always been a Buddha, all right, because of his behavior, he's behaving exactly like a Buddha, and he's fulfilling the function of a Buddha now rather than the function of a Bodhisattva, okay? And so the vow of obeisance in this particular circumstance is he's performing the vow of obeisance from the standpoint of the stage of ultimate enlightenment, the 6th stage of practice. Okay? He's doing the same thing he would be as a Buddha. All right? Point 29 on page 165, concerning the vow of obeisance related to the Dharma realm, which is Anuttara Samyak Sambodhi, a supreme perfect enlightenment. The record of the orally transmitted teaching says the Bodhisattva, never disparaging, makes a vow of obeisance from the standpoint of the Dharma realm, okay, from the standpoint of Buddhahood. The Dharma realm is neither broad nor is it narrow. So when you hear the word Dharma realm, think of it and perceive it as something that not only encompasses everything as you would think of in an outward way, but also everything as you would consider it in an inner way. Okay, the Dharma realm is also your life itself. All right, the Dharma realm is neither broad nor is it narrow. Essentially, the word Dharma of the Dharma realm stands for all the dharmas or elements of the phenomenal world, your life included. And the word realm is the world or state of life in which they dwell. So the state of life in which you dwell comes from within you, right? It's affected by the environment. It's a reflection. The environment is a reflection of it because that's how you perceive it. If you're a Buddha, you don't perceive hell as hell. You perceive it as the Buddha land. All right, that's the whole point of mutual possession of the 10 worlds, allowing you to attain Buddhahood regardless of where you are, regardless of what's going on, regardless of whatever karmic influences are manifesting. When you attain that state, you understand everything and you don't begrudge your life. All right? Each realm or world, from the realm of hell to the state of Buddhahood, has its own patterns or rules. There's going to be reflective karmic reality based on that. Thus, the Bodhisattva, never disparaging, conforms to the rules of the realm of the Bodhisattva, never disparaging. Wherever his reward mind is, prior to him perceiving his Dharma, his Dharma body, his reward body, prior to perceiving his Dharma body, is what's going to determine whether he's in the Dharma realm of Bodhisattva or the Dharma realm of Buddha. While the 4 kinds of believers of overbearing arrogance conform to the rules and the realm of the 4 kinds of believers. If they're in hell, if they're anger, or if they're, if they're in hunger, whatever it might be, those lower realms. In this sense, the Dharma realm makes a vow of obeisance to the Dharma realm, because there's a Dharma realm in each one of those aspects. From hell to Buddhahood, there's a Dharma realm. So the Dharma realm of wherever he is, Bodhisattva never disparaging, whatever is consistent with his life condition, is making a vow of obeisance to the Dharma realm of whomever he's engaging, on the basis and the wisdom that they too possess the Dharma, the Buddha nature, and they will surely manifest it at some point in time because they've now heard Nam Myoho Renge Kyo. Okay, in this sense, the Dharma realm makes a vow of obeisance to the Dharma realm. And I won't read you the whole kind of non-duality of what he's talking about. It's explained in the asterisks at the bottom of page 165. A vow of obeisance acknowledging the fact that self and others are in fact not 2 different things. Okay? We are 2 different things, but we're not 2 different things, because the aspect of reality is that we're all functions of the Dharma realm in its entirety. Do you understand? Mm-hmm. The Dharma realm contains all of the 10 worlds, and all of the 10 worlds contain the Buddhahood that is the Dharma, that perceives and manifests the Dharma nature, okay, or the nature of a Buddha. For this reason, when the Bodhisattva, never disparaging, makes a vow of obeisance to the 4 kinds of believers, the Buddha nature, inherent in the 4 kinds of believers of overbearing arrogance, bows in obeisance to the Bodhisattva, never disparaging. Even though they don't realize it or see it, that's what's happening there. That exchange is karmic. You haven't met that person for the first time. Almost never. It's everything is based on dependent origination. So whatever you come into contact with, you've made the cause. You have the karma to come into contact with. So you should never see a separation between yourself and anything in your environment. It is like the situation when one faces a mirror and makes a vow of obeisance. The image of the mirror likewise makes a vow of obeisance to oneself. Okay, so you're making a vow of obeisance to the same Buddha nature that you have, and that Buddha nature is being reflected right back at you. I'm going to go ahead and read that definition that I said I wasn't going to. It says, here the Chinese characters for the Dharma and for the realm are used to make up the Dharma realm and conforming to the rules of the realm. When the text says the Dharma realm makes a vow of obeisance to the Dharma realm, it means respectively the Dharma realm that is the state of conforming to the rules of the realm of the Bodhisattva, never disparaging, and the Dharma realm of the four kinds of believers. This is described as the non-duality of self and others. Non-duality means that we are not two different things. That's that when you perceive the sixth stage of practice, you don't see any separation between yourself and anything in the entire universe. Okay? And that's why it sounds so profound and inconceivable, but the entire universe is contained within your own mind, because your mind is limitless. Your mind is eternal. Your Dharma mind is eternal. That's why we have these the manifest body, the reward body, and then the Dharma body is that 10th world mind. Page 166, and this will conclude the chapter on Bodhisattva never disparaging. Point 30, concerning the vow of obeisance related to the attitude of forbearance. Because as he's been taking this shit from these people, while he's been kind and having pity and compassion for them, and going through whatever it takes, even if they throw sticks and stones and try to do him physical harm, okay, that's the forbearance. Putting up with the bullshit that's involved in being the Buddha. And there's a lot of bullshit involved with being the Buddha, because there are people that are going to reject you just for the fact that you understand and manifest that. All right? So the record of the orally transmitted teaching says we are told that the four kinds of believers of overbearing arrogance in their anger cursed and abused, did physical damage, tried to hit him, chased him, did whatever, abused him. Abused the Bodhisattva never disparaging, and that they slandered him further by calling his prediction that they would attain Buddhahood vain and irresponsible. I read you that from the sutra. Chapter 20, it says, it gives that citation, is on page 309. But after all that, it is said that the Bodhisattva did not give way to anger. He understood that it's just those lower worlds that are making them manifest that kind of a state of life, and that's not their inherent nature. That's not reflective of the eternally endowed three bodies that all living beings are in their original state, Hence, we know that he maintained an attitude of forbearance, because he didn't get pissed off, okay, and say, screw you, I don't need to put up with your shit. That's not the right attitude. Hence, we know that he maintained an attitude of forbearance, and from that position performed a vow of obeisance, from that perspective of understanding. Of these 14 positions from which the vow of obeisance is conducted, the first is known as the ordinary run of teachers, but the remaining 13 are not known to the teachers of our present age. These are only revealed through Nam-myoho Renge-kyo and the teachings of Nichiren. So there's no preceding doctrine that would include the insight that I've just gone through in these last 13 vows of obeisance from the 30 points, important points that I've shown in his, but brought forth from the sutra itself through these explications of phrases from the sutra. He says, this concludes the explanation of the 14 standpoints from which the vow of obeisance is conducted on page 166, and we'll stop there. We've finished the Bodhisattva never disparaging, chapter 30, important points. And next we'll go on to chapter 21, supernatural powers of the thus come one, 8 important points. Thank you very much.